Right, welcome back to the Identity Human podcast with your hosts Don and
Ray Almond.
oh, you said Armin today.
I decided just to wind you up and say that.
Yeah, well, it's working. I don't like it when you say it. So we are now. You'll see three. If you're watching it, there's three cameras. So obviously, have a very special guest again, Shaun Thompson. We've been very lucky with the people that we've got on board. So Shaun, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this one. It's sounds a little bit different, maybe to kind of what I'm used to. So we're kind of talking maybe about me a little bit more, which it's interesting rather than just kind of what I do and how I help. So yeah, I'm excited.
And he's the first official backwards cap wearer that we've had on as a guest. So.
Ray, where's yours?
Cap.
Where's yours, Ray?
I've got my headphones. Where would I suppose the headphones go over the cap? I'm sorry. I'm letting the team down. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You do you. And then also, if you're watching the video, Ray is joining us online. And this is the adaptability of making sure we get stuff done. And she's not in person with me today. So we'll see how this goes. But Shaun, so from our point of view, getting you on, your official title would be the behavior change coach. And obviously, I think that's great. I think there'll be a lot of similarities. There's a lot of overlaps, but it might be good to just let me give you the platform now as we've got people's attention and you've got this pitch that you're going to have to do that's going to make them remember who you are, why you stand out. You go.
It was a revelation, and I've had a recent one recently. So you're kind of almost getting a small exclusive here because the way I look at it now is I'm a performance coach who specializes in behavior change, whereas for the past year, it's just been the behavior change coach. I do behavior change. And I was coming up a lot to, well, what is that? You see, oh, that sounds interesting, but what is it? And the revelation recently was, well, no, I'm a performance coach. I help people perform every single day in their business, in parenting, in their life, in sport. And I do that by going deeper. We've all seen the terrifying stats of mental health and obesity and everything like this. And we're still in this society where we plaster over a burst pipe. And I was for many, many years through my journey. I plastered over everything. I trained harder and more, and I'd eat more salmon for breakfast. Yet things still didn't work. I still wasn't performing. I still was, I carried high levels of body fat when I played professional sport. On and off, I'd have phases where I was leaner. I just couldn't figure out. I was my worst client. I was so hard to work with. I'd smash it with other clients, no problem. Couldn't do it myself. And it came, there was two big phases. One was retiring from ice hockey, and the second one was lockdown. And both of those phases brought realizations where I got more sleep, my stress was reduced, and guess what? The flapjacks and the Lucozades disappeared. And I was like, you're an idiot. You've been doing this for 8-10 years. And you haven't figured this out. And now, just by complete accident, you've realized what you should have been doing all that time was something deeper. And it wasn't, another fitness workout, another diet. And that's where the behavior change comes in, the personal development element, the habits, routine. When we go to that place, it's incredible what we can achieve as humans. And that isn't just financially. That's within parenting. I've seen incredible lessons and changes in my parenting skills, in coaching, whether that's with humans or kids in sports. I'm doing my boys' sports team. And it's just, I've gone from never wanting to learn again when I left school to now every single day is a school day. Every day I'm learning something and I love it. I've got this passion for it, which I never had at school.
Yeah, fantastic. I think you and me are kindred spirits. I really enjoyed that summary. And one thing that stuck out, I'm just trying to bring it back because I was really listening to you instead of trying to, you're like, don't ask a question. It's not going to come to me. Is obviously I want to talk to you about your ice hockey and that transition. And then you went on and, there was a really important question there. Oh, yes. So you said when the Lucozade and the crumpets dropped off. And I, obviously in my rugby background, it was when you were priming to perform, that would come at a sacrifice of certain aspects of health. So I would I'd tape it off on it a lot, but there were guys that would have like 250 milligrams of caffeine before the game and at halftime on top of your Lucozades, your BCAAs, your MCSGs, your 569 XYZ things that you didn't even know what it was. But someone was like, here, take this. your body starts to tingle. You've got your paracetamol and your ibuprofen and all that kind of stuff. Just you're putting all of this toxic stuff in your body, and then you perform.
Trying to
But
like
what
a
I real
performance in the moment at the loss of your longer term health.
yeah, well, no, but I think that's what we've been led to believe is I stopped taking caffeine before a game. I'd have a coffee in the morning and a bowl of oats. I'd have a nut bar before the game and some bananas. And I would be able to maintain my level of performance a lot better over the 80 minutes I was playing, as opposed to those 3 or 4 years when I was like, I need the stimulant, I need this. And your like levels would go up and down. So I always used to say, post rugby, I'm going to be a lot healthier because everyone assumes you're going to be healthier in your sport. And I suppose I just wanted to touch in on that is like, I feel like you've identified the very big difference between what we think is performance and then health, and realize that when you focus on health, you can perform better.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's certainly
For
a
me,
crossover, right? Because like athletes are are generally going to be healthier than couch potatoes. So they are training, they are putting in better foods, to the grand scheme of things. But like you said, it doesn't always correlate over to health. My biggest issue is I needed to perform at a weekend, and it was at whatever cost. If it was an hour, 2 hours before the game and I didn't feel good, I got to find a way to feel good. Is that a Lucozade? Is that a protein
Yeah.
bar? A whole pack of Haribo sweets I'd eat for like during a game, like a mad. But the reason I did that was because of my weight struggles. I would undereat during the week. I didn't know in my level, in my sport over here, there was no support. Everything you wanted extra, you had to do yourself or pay for yourself. So we didn't have nutritionists, we didn't have trainers, we had to do it ourselves. And I didn't know that I was massively undereating until a lot later in my career, where I was honest with myself. And I was like, look, you've just got to write down in a food diary what you're consuming, because this is nuts. And I was consuming way over 10,000 calories at a weekend because
Sure.
I was undereating in the week. And the reason I was doing that, because of my performance, I knew I wasn't feeling great because I hadn't had enough food. But I was like, it's getting close to game time. You're going to have to eat now. And you're going to have to eat afterwards because you're probably playing again tomorrow, because we played Saturday and Sunday. There was just no control. My body said more and I gave it more. And I performed. Maybe not as best as I could have done,
Yeah.
because if I'd known more, I could have been leaner and all this other stuff. But on the day, I showed up, I did my job for the team, and we go again the next week. But the same cycle continued for years and years of undereating and overeating. So it's very difficult. Like you said, there is a short-term performance focus, and then there's a long-term performance, and then there's health. There are different aspects of it.
do you know what I picked up from your story when I was listening to it? Is that although you were, because have you been coaching people throughout this and helping people with their performance throughout your ice hockey career? Is that correct?
Yeah, so my latter part of the career, I played more semi-professional. So we would train late nights and play weekends, and then I would PT. At the time, I was just personal training, so I would do that in the daytimes.
And isn't it funny how you could help other people, you can now help other people see what they can't see, but when you were going through it yourself, you couldn't pick up what was actually quite some obvious fixes. And I think that's like such a typical journey of not talking about someone who's a coach, but someone who's going through something. They think, oh, I'm really struggling, and they try all these different things, but it actually helps so much to have someone come who has that bird's eye view, who has that perspective, who can look at your situation and advise you and actually help you to get through what's maybe blocking your kind of next stage of performance so much quicker than you could do yourself. And like your journey to me just screams that the kind of lesson for people. So hopefully anyone listening to this kind of can see that and take away and go maybe get that extra support, or that third that opinion that they need, because and you probably have the right message coming from your spouse or loved ones, but they almost feel too close to listen to. So it's getting that, like, I don't know, that bird's eye view over your performance, that you can now see how obvious it was when you were on the other side of it.
That's the thing, though, because I was surrounded by great personal trainers. I worked in a PT studio rather than a gym, constantly asking for advice, and they didn't see it because I guess they didn't get the full message from me either, right? None of them said, oh, how's your sleep? How's your stress? I saw you secret eating in the car again. Nobody saw that, and I didn't see it, and then there was nothing. And the problem was, I guess, because I was a personal trainer, I wasn't afraid to ask for help, but because I couldn't express it, or I couldn't say, look, I don't know what this is. Something is seriously wrong. This is what I'm doing. Like, they all said, Shaun, you train so hard. I see you eating your salmon and rice at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I don't know what the problem is. Well, because nobody saw it. Nobody saw what I did in the car. Nobody saw that I was only getting 4 hours of sleep and how much that was affecting my eating behaviors. The stress of performing. We were paid. If we didn't perform, we didn't score goals, 2-week notice, go find yourself another team. In ice hockey, that's not just down the road. You might have to travel a long way to find another team, and that doesn't quite fly when you're, semi-professional and working as well. So, that was the problem is if I'd kind of gone, I need a coach, right? I need somebody who has a deeper knowledge on this. It would have been fixed a lot earlier, but because I didn't see it, and I was dishonest with myself. I knew I was over consuming in areas that didn't go in the food diary, did it? Didn't count if you don't put it in the food diary. And it hurt when I finally admitted it to myself. It hurt. I can remember it was like 3 days of just guilt, just calling myself an idiot. You're so stupid. But then I never suffered that guilt and that feeling again. I bruised my ego, got over it, and moved on.
What do you think, going back to that time, if someone's in a similar space, but let's go back because someone could apply this to where they are now. If going back to you before you had that realization, what could someone have said to you? Like, say, if they listen to this podcast, what could someone have said to you to get you to take the action to fix that? And if that action was seeking the help or whatever it might be, what could someone have said to you that would have made the difference?
I've never had issues taking action. So if I had trusted a person with their knowledge, I would have implemented. I still do today. If somebody tells me something, like, again, this transformation phase of performance coaches coming in, I've had lots of people giving me advice. If I trust them, I implement. So for me, it would have been admitting that I had a bigger issue. And I think with my story, hopefully other people can look at it and go, oh, actually, yeah, it's more than just diet, or it's more than just training. That's what I try and get across to people now. So, it would have been just kind of, if I knew there was more, because I didn't know there was more, I would have asked the question to somebody. Yeah. And I would have asked the question to somebody with a bigger knowledge base around the mind. I didn't have an issue training. I didn't have an issue with my diet because I ate well. I just ate too little and then ate crap to make up for it. So I knew what to eat, I knew what to do, but there was just missing pieces. And I said I was around fantastic personal trainers. My boss used to train actors and actresses in the film industry. Incredible body transformation coach. Yeah, I never got any little nuggets off him like that. It was always come and train with me, and
train harder, yeah.
Yeah. And because he didn't know, because I didn't know. So it's very difficult when you are unsure. And I guess if you are unsure and you're continuously stuck, the likelihood this is deeper, this is more mindset, this is mental, and this requires a more coaching element than another workout or a diet club.
The great visual that I heard, sorry, Don, and then I'll let you go.
No, go.
The great visual that I heard on our last podcast that we actually recorded with Dr. Michael Passaportis, that he's got the doctor title, but he's got he's now a psychologist for
sports
psychologist, yes. Is he talks about like a table with 4 legs, and when he deals with people in like a sports environment, which is very similar to your scenario, Shaun Thompson, is that they would have like they would have the 3 legs, and I can't remember the 3 legs, but it was around like their skill set, like they would have the right skills for the sport, they would have the fitness for the sport. Do you remember the 3rd leg?
No,
but there was like the 3 key legs of like a successful sport, and everyone's focusing on that, like eat right, exercise right, get your skills right. But if you have a table, your table's not going to be very balanced without that fourth leg. And that fourth leg is mindset. That fourth leg is working on your mental space. Because if you can get that right, that's going to give you that solid table, that solid foundation. So it sounds like your journey was very similar to that.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Shaun, do you have a comment there?
No. Just agreeing. Okay. It's so important, and it isn't about. There's so much to it. It isn't just mental resilience. That's just another piece of the puzzle. Like I said, I had the resilience. I just didn't have the awareness, the self-awareness. And so there's so many different aspects of the mind that becomes powerful once you utilize them.
Yeah. So I mean, I wanted to add on just Ray's bringing in that analogy of the four legs is. I was chatting to the head of AQR International. They do that mental toughness around the world. And he obviously gets involved in a lot of different sports teams, different organizations, and they're all about resilience and the mind and who's going to be able to hold the pressure, hold themselves. And I'm trying to think how I can keep this as anonymous as possible. There was a team that he was involved in that had one key player that was in a key position, and found out that this player would do so well until something went wrong, and then they would hide. And we're obviously talking about mental toughness. This person, you'd think, he's made it to that level, he's able to perform the way he is, but the coaches knew, well, I know that when we criticize, he then crumbles, and his bounce back ability isn't there. And so that was they'd never worked on that mental side of him, and they didn't manage to keep him going, because when they found out what it was like lack of confidence from his upbringing with his dad being super critical the whole time. So he couldn't stand any more criticism. And it was like his three legs in his table were brilliant, like athlete, skilled, everything going right. But that fourth leg, it just had this little crack in it. And when someone was like, oh, look at the crack, it was gone. And then the whole table toppled over. And I think it's one way of, if people are listening to this and they go, oh, it's another behavioral thing, and we're talking about psychology and the mind, and it's a whole lot of fluffy stuff. But realistically, I think it's one of the most important legs in that table, if not the most important, because it's almost, you put it center, it's then helping everything else balance. But we always just give it because it's so hard to measure, isn't it? Like we talk about mental fitness and physical fitness. If I wanted to bench press 150 kgs in 6 months' time, Shaun, you'd be able to go, Don, this is why we're going to start 4 days a week. You're going to do this. Then you're going to go up by this percentage or these kgs. You're going to do these reps. Then you're going to rest. Then you're going to see that you're going to go up, and eventually we'll be able to get there. But a mental thing, if I said, I want to be able to, I don't know, make my bed, be consistent with this and do all this kind of stuff, it's a lot different. It's a lot more, I need to coach you through this as you go so we can learn on the fly. And I think that's where people get despondent, because there's so much uncertainty of it, and it requires you to have like a unshakable faith that mindset is what needs to be worked on. We just don't know how.
And also, like when you're lifting weight, you can see yourself lifting a heavier weight. You can see your muscles growing. So there's something tangible and visual to see your progress. So it's working on your mindset. It's not as easy to see. And you also sometimes go backwards a few steps before you go forward. So it's a lot more difficult to measure and really appreciate the journey and how far you've come. And I suppose, that's a challenge. And also, just to draw a parallel here, everything we're discussing can be linked to being a parent of young kids in business, and you can feel the same. You have 3 legs where you probably, of your 4 legs at the table, needs, and you're probably reading all the parenting books or podcasts or seeing stuff on social media and implementing these really cool parenting hacks that are meant to make all the difference. Like, you're not shouting at your kids, you're encouraging them, etc. You are, for yourself, are maybe working on you eating right, and you're fitting in exercise when you can. On your business, you've done all the things that the business needs to do, and you're just you're doing. But if you haven't got that mindset piece, it's exactly the same. So that same parallel can be drawn.
So Shaun, how would you tie in? Yeah, go on. How would you tie it all in?
It brings everything, doesn't it? Your mind keeps you alive. It's your absolute everything. It's your biggest asset. People just don't use it, like you said, because you don't see that tangible return. But ultimately, you're using the bench press example there. so many people are externally confident. They rely on external praise, external results. And the problem is when that external praise or that external result doesn't happen, that's when everything comes crumbling. That's your fourth leg, right? Like the players you described. I've played with many players that look unbelievable in training. I'm like, whoa, this guy's going to have a great season. You play a game, you're like, oh, I didn't realize they were playing today. You've got to have that internal drive, that internal confidence, that deep desire of belief. And you're like, well, how do you get that? Well, by starting by saying that you believe yourself. You believe that this is possible. I'm a true believer that everything is a matter of when, not if, as long as your purpose and passion to do something is there, because that's what we often forget. If we link to sport, if the passion isn't there to improve and to play sport, well, don't stress about it because you're not going to make it anyway. You've got to love what you do. But when you love what you do and you have that deeper desire, again, it's not weight loss. You don't care how much you weigh. If it was about weight, then anorexic people would be the happiest people in the world. So it's not about weight. It's, it's a feeling, but we can't express a feeling. And that's what we find hard. I find this with my clients all the time. We can't really express what we're looking for, like that happiness feel, because maybe we haven't had it or haven't had it in a while. But it all comes from that internal drive that you are unbreakable. And this isn't, your motivation speech that you hear from a lot of people and shouting and calling you, a lion. This is just that desire that it is possible. If somebody has achieved it before, it's possible. Maybe you have achieved it before, but you haven't done it for a while. It's possible. And that's what I want to get into people, that anything that you want to do in this world, if there's a purpose and passion behind it, it just becomes a matter of when. 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I have no idea. I can't tell you that part. What I can tell you is if you continue for that period of time, you're going to be in a lot better place than you are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I think that's a key. And I'm quite motivated after you said that. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now I need to plan so I know what to do when the motivation drops. I'll quickly take you back a bit. Can you quickly tie in like family support? Like, do you have kids, what you got going on and how you approach balancing that out?
Yeah. So 10 years married, 10 years married, 2 beautiful boys, 6 and 3, very energetic. My position as a parent will be different to every other parent out there. You got 9 to 5 parents, you got stay-at-home mums or dads. I run a business around school drop-off, school pickups, clubs. I'm involved in my eldest football team now, and I love it. It's got the athlete head back that I lost from when I retired, so I love thinking about sport again. But it's difficult. There's no way around it. Anybody that says, hey, going to work and parenting it's a walk in the park, I'd love to meet you. And I'd love to know the secret because it is challenging. But ultimately what sports provided me, especially playing a sport like ice hockey, when I say I had a lot of tough coaches, discipline, but without the abuse. They were just tough, hard-nosed hockey players passing it down to us because if we weren't, we would struggle in ice hockey because it's a tough, resilient sport. You have players every game that want to hurt you. You have to be ready for that. And I think that resilience has helped me in parenting as well. My whole podcast is based around a revelation I had in parenting, that I wasn't behaving in business and parenting like I used to behave as an athlete. Because I used to be mentally quite resilient. I had phases in my career where I wasn't, but you get brought up in a tough sport. I played pro at 16. I was playing with grown men at 16. I had to grow up and toughen up and be ready very quickly. Otherwise, 1, I wasn't going to make it very far. And 2, there was a high chance I was probably going to get hurt.
Yeah. So what was the revelation, by the way? That's quite important to come over to your podcast and have a listen to it.
So the revelation, so it was one night. If we've got any parents listening here, hopefully you remember that you recognize the same feeling. Yeah. But I just felt this stress. So you can feel it building up. You can feel it almost like coming up into your head and into your face. And I could feel that coming up. And I'm not a shouter to my boys. I strong voice, the stare. I've got the stare nailed. But I could feel it building up. And I just said, like, they weren't doing anything bad. They were just being kids. And I just said, bed now. And they went off to bed, came back down. I was just like, guilt, shame. I suffered quite bad with parent guilt in my kind of younger parenting times. I just get the shame and the guilt. And I don't know where it came from, but I was like, when I played hockey and I had a bad day or a bad game, I would always say there is always another game. We play tomorrow. What are you doing sulking now? You have to be ready to be better tomorrow. Or if we played on a Sunday, it's like less than 6 days time, you're playing again. What are you going to do to be better to avoid this feeling? I was like, well, I get to go again tomorrow. I get to parent again tomorrow, and I can improve. How can I improve this that I can be a better partner, a better father to who I want to be? And that revelation was just sparked off all of these other ice hockey analogies and sporting analogies I always used to do. I'm like, skills are transferable. How have I not seen this before?
Yeah.
What I learned in sport, I can do in business, parenting, relationships, friendship. It's all transferable. They're just different topics. So now on the podcast, I get to talk to other athletes about the same sort of stuff and what they've learned from their sporting career, but most importantly, how they use those skills in life away from the game, in personal development, business, parenting. And it's fascinating because I just want to show people if you're good in one area, you can take that to another. You can take what you've learned and use it.
Yeah, so I almost call it like the alchemist's language. Once you start to see it, then you can see it everywhere and you can understand it.
But you could see it, like Shaun says, you could see those lessons and like you could learn that language and learn it in one area, but like not have that ability or not thought of transferring it to other areas. So it's giving people that nudge.
Yeah, so that's why so an alchemist is someone that can create gold out of dirt, but they connect every area of life and recognize no matter where they walk into how things transfer and how they all connect and how everything is connected. So it's like an alchemist's language is like you're able to walk into a 10-person business or a 200-person business and recognize their issues being the same, as well as you can walk into a family with one kid and a family with 10 and be able to learn how to simplify their language to be able to help them with what they're going through. Mm-hmm. And I imagine Shaun being in the occupation that you're in, the business you got, that's very key for every single different individual that walks in that door and goes, this is my issue. I haven't been able to find the answer anywhere. And you go, well, actually, it's pretty much exactly the same as this, but they can't see it.
Yeah. And working with business leaders, they're obviously good at something, right? Because they're a leader. That could be a coach as well. But it doesn't mean you're great everywhere. And you could be a business leader because of a certain set of skills, but those skills can be moved into an area where you may struggle with communication or you may struggle in your health. I've worked with a number of clients who, when they talk about their business, speak very openly and optimistic. There's no problems. Everything's a solution. We messed up here. No worries. We'll do that. Then they talk about an exercise or a workout they've done and they go, oh yeah, I worked out today. I was rubbish. Did terrible on that exercise. And I'm like, am I talking to the same person here? How can you switch from optimistic to kind of cautious and risk aversion? Which one are you? Which one drives you? And sometimes just that changing of wording is extremely powerful as well to get them to see the other areas the same way they do business and implement it. I did a workout today. I would have loved to improved in these areas. So next time I'm going to do this. Bang. Transformation in the mind there, transformation in the body, just by linking it up to what makes them successful and moving it into an area that they find difficult.
I love that. So that when you're looking at people, you're finding where are you successful and how, and you've already learned those lessons you needed to that area. So let me help you let's teach you to transfer those to other areas. That's a really cool concept that I haven't thought of or heard of before.
So what was going in my mind there was, everyone talks about you're either fixed or your growth mindset, but it's more like if there's 100 different areas that you need a mindset in, how many of those are you fixed and how many are you growth in? And what you were starting to do there is you connect a fixed mindset area into growth by bringing in the growth concept and go, right, now grow. And the more areas in life you can start to put the growth mindset thing and realize it's fluid, it's always changing and you need to just constantly bring it in, then people start to solve their own issues. So I think it's like, Ray, you're going to say something?
And it's got my brain spinning of like, I'm thinking about all my friends. I've got friends that I think about who are like so incredible at doing one thing, but in another area of their life, they just beat themselves up, or they just like have a completely negative thought process. And I've never thought about the fact that if they have that skill set, they just need to be shown that it can be applied to other areas of their life. Like, and there's so many people, I reckon everyone out there has all these inconsistencies, and it's almost like just teaching them that they don't need to be so inconsistent with their growth mindset, hey, Don, in terms of the way they approach areas of their life. Very, very
I use that as it's the most common, simple language. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, but everyone understands because Carol Dweck's made it what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Shaun, one question that pops up into my mind is everyone that's played professional sport and has something else to give post-it has something that was really challenging in the sport time, like a period where you got injured or where there was a coach that was just making life difficult. Do you have one there that, like, if you weren't aware of your body language, would make you tense up when you're talking about it, or you think you've gotten over it, but it'll pop up? Is there something there that you know is like it's a driver to make sure that it doesn't happen to others that you've got in your time of sport?
Yes, sport throws up multiple challenges. I only ever got seriously injured once, but it taught me so much about my body. I actually rehabbed with a fantastic place near me, and I came back fitter and stronger than I was when I got injured. And I think this is a big part of it. It's kind of lessons learned. If you want to talk difficult, my latter part of my playing career, I was with a coach who we didn't see eye to eye. He wanted me to play for the team, but when I was there, something didn't work. He wasn't a very good communicator, and that massively affected me because I didn't know, right? We hate open-ended stuff. Humans hate cliffhangers. We hate them. We need to know the answers. And if we don't get the answers, we create them ourselves. So it was quite a negative time in my playing career, my latter part. And I wouldn't put it as the sole reason why I retired, but it was a big reason because he was a coach at my local club. I had a young boy that I wanted to be at home with. I didn't want to travel to a club further away. So there was an element there that helped me make my decision. But because it wasn't the only thing, I think the decision to retire didn't come with huge negativity. I made the decision eventually. It took me a while, but I eventually did it because there was more to it. And like I said, my boy, I didn't see a huge amount of him in the younger years because of the sport and working. And I would be sitting on the bus and all the boys are laughing and joking and playing cards. And I'm just like, I just want to be at home. Don't want to be here. But hockey was all I'd ever known. I'd played since I was 5 years old. Like, to not go on a bus on the weekend or to not have my game day routine, it's like that was scarier. Like, because that's all I'd known since the age of, even before 16, it was still quite serious for me. So, and I did speak about it in my podcast recently about the influences of coaches. And the way I look at it now is, as much as he had a big negative effect on my career, and it was the end as well, which is quite disappointing.
Yeah.
I don't blame anybody because, I could have done multiple things. We came back together after a difficult time for another team and we came back together. So I could have learned the lesson the first time and not gone back. But as I said in the podcast, I had amazing coaches. I had good coaches. I had average coaches and I had terrible ones. And I've learned something from all of them. And I suppose from this incident later on in my career, I've learned the importance of communication and honesty. And that people don't just lose their ability. Because actually at the time, I thought I'd got old. I was only 32. I thought I was old. I thought I'd passed it. I thought my body's just given up. It hadn't at all. I could have physically kept playing, knowing what I know now, but I didn't want to mentally. So I don't have any regrets there. But I've learned the importance that, the job as a coach, as a manager, is to get the best out of people. And I will always take that with me into my clients and into my sporting career, that even if there is a difficult person, I have this duty of care to get the best out of them. and understand that there could be a lot more going on than maybe what's let up. And it's my job to do the best I can to find out what that is.
Yeah, an interesting way to I'm going to weave this in, like from sport, obviously going into leadership development and trying to help individuals. The amount of people, leaders, owners that are near the top of the organization that don't have a good sense of who their people are really confuses me. And what they don't realize is at the depth. So I was listening to the Lucifer Effect. It's like a 19-hour long book. I can't wait to finish it just because it's like I need to finish the book, but because I'm a listener. But it's the Stanford prison experiment, and the guy that did everything within that, and he's analyzing it and he's assessing human beings. And funny enough, it was meant to be a 2-week experiment that they canceled after 5 days. But one of the sentences that I've come across recently is like, people will abuse power through anonymity. So for me, why should we get to know our people? For one, you can get the best out of them. You touch base and all that, but it makes them accountable to you because you've connected. Mm-hmm. But if a coach is getting the best out of their players, it's because, or why he has to know them, is because he knows what drives that person. So when that person starts to slack and doesn't do their fitness, he doesn't have to say, you're slacking, go to your fitness, otherwise I'm going to extrinsically punish you. He's going to go like, mate, I understand. How's Julie? How's so-and-so? I realize, like, where's your mom? All those touch points allow that coach to get the player to want to do more. Transferring that into business, if you're not having those touch points, you're making people more anonymous. When people are anonymous, if they're in a position of power, they start to abuse it. The big corporates is probably a really good way of seeing, like, oh, we don't even know who the director is. So that director just makes decisions that suit him because there's anonymity, there's a lack of touch. But the same way it works for those that are lower down. If they feel anonymous in an organization or a culture, they are going to then go, well, I'm just going to do this because it doesn't matter. I'm going to take an extra bit here because it doesn't matter. And I think that's just a really good example of a good coach gets the best out of their players the same way that a leader that's good knows their people to get the best out of them. And often you'll see people go, oh, why should I know my people? They had to do a job. If they can't do it, I'll just go get someone else. But there's so many, I don't want to go on and on about it.
But you see that all the time in business. I had a lot of my PT career was in the film industry, in Pinewood Studios, film studios is where we had our PT studio. And it was exactly that ethos. If you don't want to do it, somebody else will. And that just becomes a choice on the individual. That type of coaching style and, teaching style or whatever it might be, it never sat well with me. And that's just who I am as an individual. And I do believe that leadership is a learned skill. And we get a lot of people promoted into a leadership position via their skill or their ability. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's so much more to leadership. How you show up, your communication. I've spoke about it before, and I've asked the question: is the door actually open? You say the door's open, but your actions are saying differently. So I don't feel comfortable coming to you. So you can say what you like, but you're not showing up with that open door policy. But it's a learned skill. We can read about it. We can go to workshops. We can get a leadership coach. It's I think for businesses and even for sports teams, if you want to bring somebody up, you've got to put them in a position to be able to lead as well.
Yeah. And I think
it's great to so Don, you often talk about, don't you say, like, leadership, some people are born with certain elements, or they have learned certain elements from their childhood, so when they come to the business world, they already have those innate in them. But I think other people might say, well, I'm not a natural leader, I'm not a leader, I don't know how to lead. But it's great to hear, Shaun, that you said these are things that can be learned and practiced, and you can become better at being a leader.
Yeah, so 100%. just to add on there, sorry, Shaun, just to give Ray context, because it can be taken, it's almost like having a head start. So some people, I think, naturally have leadership qualities because of personality types, if you understand them, what they're naturally drawn to, but they still, in a leadership position, have to learn more because there's so much to it. Where some people have different strengths that wouldn't necessarily fit into the context of leadership, but they can learn they can learn those skills just there. So both have to learn, but just some naturally do it. Some have to work on it a bit harder.
And when I think back to my school days, junior school and secondary school, is they select the prefects or leaders of your house or your sport, and they like almost select it and make it think, well, that person's a natural leader, that person's a natural leader, and they select the leaders, making everyone else think, well, I'm not a leader. So you get put in this box, I think, through the school system, but actually we can all learn to become good leaders. But I think like it's almost so ingrained in me, like it almost feels uncomfortable to say, because ingrained in me throughout my school years was, you either are a good leader or you're not.
Yeah, and isn't it a bit, I don't know if disrespect is maybe too strong, but, when you're going, that kid's a natural leader, isn't that a bit of a disrespect to his upbringing, his parents, who he's been, his sports coaches he's been around, who's nurtured that personality? He hasn't just, popped out on day one, in a hospital bed and now he's a leader. There's been so much nurturing through that phase of parenting is the most important thing in a child's life. I don't believe that you should let the schools and sports coaches, parent your children. I think parenting is always first. And then getting them in the right environments within their school friendship groups, their teachers. It was a big reason why I chose the school that my boy went to, because I a massive admiration for the head teacher and what he was doing. And you could see that within his staff as well. I didn't just go, like that school, put him there. He's gone to a school that isn't closest to us because it felt more aligned with what I want my boys to have in life, which is, again, that growth mindset push and everything like that. So, there's so many factors and there is so many learned skills that we put aside. Like you said there, Ray, I'm not a leader. Well, yeah, of course you're not, because you've just told yourself you're not a leader. Whereas if you want to be a leader, you can go and be a leader. There's so many things you can do. You can practice your communication skills. You can practice your listening. You can go on courses. If you really wanted to be a leader, there's no better time than we're in right now to literally do whatever you want. There's courses on everything. You just have to find, again, that purpose and passion to do it. And it's possible if you believe it's possible.
Yeah. And I like that that if you believe it's possible, what you're willing to know about yourself. For just to back up or go back around to what Ray was saying, is like, you got to be aware of what you are and what you're not, so that when you're learning, the what you're not is going to come through, and you don't want to be blind to it. Because again, Shaun, like, what type of leader do you want to be? What type of leader do you need to be? So if you put me in Ray's business, I'm probably not going to be a very good leader, because what do I know about accounting or anything? I might do it differently. I won't get things done as quick. Whereas you put Ray into my kind of business, she probably won't have as greater effect on people as I do. So it's really understanding, like, we try and simplify things when we're on LinkedIn, like, what does leadership mean? And someone say, this is exactly what leadership means. And I'm like, in what context? And I think we as humans are very bad at putting this, like a layer that, like, we all talk in a vacuum, but there's 1,000 different contexts, and you've got to learn how to get your context according to what someone else has said. Otherwise, that's where, like, comparison is the thief of joy comes in, as we go, I'm not a leader because I'm not like that person, but they're not in your position. So
yeah, good point, actually, because there's so many different forms of leaders, right? Like, I look back to two of my favorite captains in my team. Neither of them were heavily vocal. They just showed up with performance consistently. They led by example. They weren't overly vocal. So there are different forms of leaderships, and what works for me as a leader won't necessarily work for you, Don, or for you, Ray. We all have people that inspire us that are different. So to package a leader into one category is incorrect. There are so many different versions and so many inspiring people out there that are leading people every day. They may just not realize it.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes down to the, why is it really important to know who you are and be you unapologetically? Because if you're being you unapologetically, you will attract the people that need that, as opposed to thinking you have to fit into. So I know, like, if I have to find my ideal clients, I have to focus on being me the most, because they will come to me, as opposed to trying to change how I am to suit a business just because I want their money, because we won't resonate. And I've already had a few of those where I recognize I'm doing work and I'm like, we don't agree. And it doesn't matter what I say, that person will probably just view leadership in a different way. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not wrong. Neither are you. You're right. so am I. But we often try and prove on a right or wrong. But I do know what I really did want to chat. Well, a question. I've got a couple of like banker questions, and one of them I want to see how you answer is like, what scares you the most?
What scares me the most? Not seeing my boys grow up.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and I think from stuff you've said so far, that is, some people can disguise it as I value my family, I'm a good family man, but realistically, it's I didn't want to travel to every weekend and for weeks at a time because I wouldn't have been around my boys. But do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I've got two fantastic boys. I've been in a position of, had a business for 14 years now, that I'm in a position where I can take them to school, I can pick them up, I can have dinner with them most nights, which I couldn't have done pre-lockdown, which is fantastic. I absolutely love it. But yeah, I played a physical sport. I've always been brought up with good resilience. There isn't much that scares me. You won't see me skydiving anytime soon. But then if one of my
Sure.
boys, when they were older said, I want to go skydiving with you, my answer would be yes. It would absolutely scare the life out of me, but I would do it with them. But not seeing them grow up is probably the biggest fear of mine. Just purely because I love seeing them every day. I love seeing what they do, but also they give me so much. They've directed me in the way of podcasting. My eldest has brought me back into sport, which I didn't realize how much I needed to get back in. So they give me so much as well as me giving back. And it drives me to continue to look after myself, to be involved, to be active, to watch what I'm eating, to reduce my stress, so that I can be around a long, long time and love this phase of my life, because this is just another phase. It's not just about them. It's a phase that I'm growing through as well. And we just get to do that together. So, it drives me, in terms of business to bring the finances in, to give them the life, to make them happy, to allow them to live happier, longer as well. So they offer me probably just as much as I give back to them, but they don't realize it because they're only 6 and 3.
What really struck like a chord with me in what you were saying there is that you've got young kids and you have a business, like we say. That's kind of who we're speaking to here. And you said it's reminding you, like, you want to look back and know that you enjoyed this phase and that this was a phase for you to grow through, to not just them. So as much as you're so focused on your kids and your kids are so important to you, you also recognizing that it's important that you experience this phase of life with enjoyment, that you grow through this phase, that there's something that you can look back on, that you've also benefited from this phase. And I think a lot of parents in business miss that. They're so busy making sure they're doing the best for their kids and the best for their business, and they don't think about how they will experience this phase of their life. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
it's part of it,
sorry,
though, isn't it? The business is part of it. You're doing it for them, but you have to do it for yourself. They tell you to put your gas mask on first for a reason, and I do believe that. I don't believe that when you take care of yourself, it's selfish behavior. I believe that you've got to be at your best so that everybody else around you can have your best. And there's that fine line between being too selfish and, going to the gym 7 days a week and not seeing your kids because you feel like you've got to go to the gym. You've got to find that balance that allows you to be your best version of yourself in this current phase. This current phase that I'm in will change. It will adapt. As my youngest starts going to classes, it will change, and it will only ever kind of evolve. And life is always about adapting anyway. So it's better to embrace the chaos than get overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it was an interesting point you made on going to gym 7 days a week. For me, like, how we're trying to redefine some people's version of selfish, because I think there's two extremes. Some people are too selfish and it comes at the cost of others. Some like wince or just eek when they go do something for yourself and they go, oh, why would I do anything for myself? Like, what about? And it's trying to find that midpoint. But for me, it's about like, if you can focus in on your intention behind your actions, you will then know how far you're being selfish or if you're not. So like, if you're going to gym 7 days a week, But when you come back in, you know that that's the way that you're going to be the best version of yourself for your kids. Then that's not selfish. But if you're going to gym 7 days a week because you're trying to avoid being around the kids, so that when you come back home, you're not any different, then it's like, well, now you're being a bit selfish because you're doing it all for you and you're not making a difference. So I know,
your
like,
intention behind it, really.
yeah. So, like, for instance, like if Ray's got, like, running our own business, we like to stick our boundaries, but sometimes clients just have these demands. And like if Ray's meant to be home at 3, or she is at home at 3, and I'm like, oh, how's your day going? She go, oh, I've just, it's one of those days where you're just getting fireballs of clients' emails. I'll say to her, just go and give yourself half an hour, or she'll do the same for me. Go give yourself half an hour, go and reply to those 3 because they're on your mind. Because I know that now I've cut down kids' time by half an hour, but I've maximized the quality of kids' time. And that's almost more important than trying to think that we have to split ourselves and be equal, because the intention behind it's completely different, about being present and enjoying the moment.
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough.
The balance always needs fine tuning.
Balance, but is there such thing as balance? I believe it's all about adapting, just constant adapting. We've got a routine, we have a plan, but sometimes that plan goes out the window, and you've got to be on your toes, and you've got to be ready with plan B, plan C, and that's the beauty of it. And ultimately, I've gone from training 2-a-days, probably 6-7 times a week, beasting myself in the gym. Whereas we said it right at the beginning of the podcast, I feel better daily now being a non-athlete who just is very, very active within my days. I've got a dog that we go out with every day, and I play football with the boys, and I try and, do the best I can to keep the house going. I feel better now than when I played hockey, because when I played hockey, I was exhausted. I would sit down most of the day when I wasn't working or wasn't in sessions and wasn't training. I just lived to play them. Whereas now, I guess it's the other way around, right? I play to live, and that's the balance. It took me a while to realize that, but there's so many ways that we can feel great. If you want to go to the gym, brilliant, absolutely fine. If you want to play pickleball, football, netball, if you just want to go for walks, if you just want to garden, there's so many different scenarios that can make you feel great. And you've just got to look for it. You've just got to find what lights that fire in your belly.
Yeah. And then the one question, because we're getting to our hour, is what's the hardest bit that no one knows about, that you haven't had an opportunity to speak about, but you go like, this is a struggle? And remember, like, if you think about how you can answer that for the audience that are listening, whether it's parents and business owners or leaders, like, what's that insight that you can give, and how you've navigated through it?
The hardest part, it's either going to be the unknown, or how long it takes, because I'm 14 years into business and I've barely scratched the surface. Like, for a long time, I was just a PT. I just took sessions and I'd say, see you next week, see you next session. Yeah. I had no foundation in my business whatsoever. And when lockdown hit and I started to move into this coaching area, I was like, oh my, I've got nothing. Even now today, before this, I was sitting down trying to do my SEO on my website. I've had a website for years. Like, it goes back again to when, not if. Okay. Yeah. When are you going to get everything you desire? If you continuously put the work in, you continuously learn, or you continuously embrace outsourcing. There's no reason why you can't outsource if you're trying to protect time, energy, and money. There's a cost to everything, and we pay in those 3. So it's the unknown. Like, you could easily get put off. If somebody turned around to me today and said, look, Shaun, you're going to get your results in probably about 7 years' time, you'd panic, right? 7 years, I can't do this for 7 years. But nobody can tell me that. It could happen tomorrow. Your podcast could get me, an episode with Stephen Bartlett for all I know tomorrow. Yeah. So it's the unknown, and that you've got to keep chipping away. because one day it will happen. And, I look back at who I was pre-lockdown to who I am now. When I give that credit, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But some days you sit there, you're like, yeah, but I'm not there yet. This is hard. Why have I not got it? Why is so-and-so over there doing great? And I'm still playing with my SEO on my website. It's a very natural response, but I quickly turn my head around, consistency, resilience. It's not an issue for me. I struggle at the other end. I struggle slowing down. I struggle taking a break. I know not everybody has that issue, but I'm on the other side. But I've got better with that, and focusing again more on quality. So just trust that the work that you're doing is going to take you somewhere, even if you don't know where it's taking you. I call it accidental intent. You have an intent to improve, and you just don't know where you're going to end up.
Yeah. I really like that. So Ray, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Because I was going to say, just the last question there, I was going to say, how do we define, because I know you clearly love what you do and you've got this passion. And so sometimes you can get caught in what do I need to take a break for? So my question there is when you said I struggle to take a break, my immediate other side is take a break from what? So what is that struggle, that not taking a break stopping you from actually doing? Because we can often talk about values and everything, but if you value what you do and how it gives back to everything else in your life, then if it's not wearing you down, what you're trying to take a break from in terms of that statement. So
it's a good question, because I'm very good at burnout realization. I'm good at self-awareness. I guess in general it's taking a break from life, because as a business owner and a parent, you don't clock out and night's over and nothing happens. Like, there's breakfast to be made, there's clothes to put out, there's to change, and dinners, and I've not got dinner, I've got to go to the shop, or the dog's, completely forgot, I've got to get the dog out. Like, it is mentally go, and I prefer that. I don't do well sitting down doing nothing. I've done my years of doing nothing. I got too much energy and too many things to do now. I prefer being on the go. But the break element is just making sure there's just that bit more time for me to be Shaun, and not a parent, and not a business owner. And I think that's the bit is, I love working, and I'll do podcasts all day if you want me to. And, I love the boys. And if they say, my little one came home and said, I want to go to the park, and he picked the furthest park away that we had to go to, I'm going to say yes most of the time, if I've got no reason not to. But it's just that time where I can do something that isn't on that I can still keep the passion for doing those other things, because I've taken a break. I don't want to lose that love by doing too much. I want to make sure that I continue to do it, and I continue to do it at my best. And that's the big part.
Great ending statement.
Great statement. Yeah. Great explanation of what does it mean to take a break. I think often people battle to identify that. So I love that description.
Yeah. And so, Shaun, we always give the opportunity at the end of a podcast. So if people loved what you said and how you were, so Stephen Bartlett's just been sent a clip and he's like, I need to get Shaun on the podcast. Where can they find you? How can they follow you? And what can they expect?
Well, I don't think I'm going to top Boris, because I think he was the last person he had on his podcast. So
yes, he was.
I think that's going to be an interesting one. I hang out on LinkedIn every day, so just Shaun Thompson. I do have a little brain emoji next to my name, so you can find me a little bit easier. And the big push at the minute is my podcast also. So Always Another Game, personal development podcast about the transfer of skills, and that's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, if you like watching people's faces whilst you're listening as well.
Yeah, we'll put some lists, so if you can. Well, we'll get the links for you, so you'll should find the links in the show notes and everything like that. So, yeah. So, Shaun, thank you very much for giving us your time. It's been fantastic hearing everything that you've got going on, and a bit of your story there too. So, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and to our listeners, remember, Ubuntu, we are who we are through others. So I'll work on me for you if you work on you for me. All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.